Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We'll begin chapter 19 from Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 8, Enchanting Pastimes. The title of this chapter is Vaman Begs Charity. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhaiti Girim Yat Kripatam Mande Shri Gurum Din Tarinam Paramanandamata Shri Chaitanya Hari Om Tat Sat. Vaman begins charity. Vaman appeared delighted by Bali's greeting. He replied, "O great king, it is hardly surprising you are so pious. After all, your advisors are Bhrigu's Brahman descendants. I'm sure that guided by your peaceful and venerable grandfather Prahlad, your future life will be most exalted." All you have told me is true and completely in keeping with religious principles and your family's reputation. A young assistant Brahmin attending Bali whispered to his friend, "Why is he glorifying Prahlad? Despite being old, he is still attached to his family, especially King Bali." His friend scowled and whispered back, "Don't be so foolish. You have never noticed how Prahlad is never disturbed. This is only possible for someone advanced in transcendental science who has awoken his devotion to the Lord. Why Prahlad is fit to be anyone's guru?" His friend blushed and focused on what the young Brahmin boy was saying. Vaman smiled up at Bali. "In your family there have never been mean-minded people who refuse to give charity, nor have there been any misers who, after promising a gift, renege or is this renege on their promise, or is it renege on their promise? The kings in your dynasty have always given alms to Brahmins living in holy places and agreed to fight when challenged by another warrior. King Prahlad shines in your family like a full moon, enhancing your dynasty's fame. My dear king, your good qualities are surprisingly, considering that you come in the line of the heroic Hiranyaksha. Armed with only a club, your renowned ancestor wandered the globe alone. Without assistance, he conquered all directions. No hero could rival him. Lord Vishnu finally killed him while assuming the form of a boar to rescue the earth, but not without difficulty. It is well known that whenever Vishnu remembers that encounter, he considers himself lucky to have emerged victorious. Everyone has heard how your great-grandfather Hiranyakashipu fearlessly stormed Vishnu's residence seeking revenge for his brother's death. Even though Vishnu is the best of all mystics, fully cognizant of past, present and future, he tried to hide from him. He was so sure that Hiranyakashipu would pursue him to his death that he decided to hide in his heart. Vishnu knew that was the only place Hiranyakashipu would not think to look for him, as he never introspected. Vaman chuckled. "I have heard that Hiranyakashipu ran with such speed that Vishnu panicked. In great anxiety, he assumed an inconceivably subtle body and entered Hiranyakashipu's nostrils along with his breath. When Vishnu suddenly disappeared, Hiranyakashipu screamed in fury. Undeterred, he searched the entire universe in all directions, but unable to find Vishnu anywhere, he finally concluded he must be dead. Most people would stop feeling angry if they thought they had defeated their enemy, but that was not the case with your great-grandfather. He never gave up his anger towards Vishnu." Vaman became absorbed in thought when he again spoke. His voice was full of tenderness. "Your father, King Virochan, so much loved Brahmins that he gave his life to his enemies, the gods, when they approached him in that guise. You also have correctly observed the principles taught and followed by great householder Brahmins by your forefathers and the heroes famous for their piety." Vaman looked Bali straight in the eye. "O king of the Daityas, from your majesty, who comes from such a noble family and who can give charity munificently. I ask only 3 paces of land to measure my steps. Bali's eyes widened. 3 paces of land, as measured by Vaman's small steps. He opened his mouth to reply, but before he could say anything, Vaman said, "This will be enough space for me to build a small hermitage for myself, since I eat only what I am given in charity. I do not need land for agriculture. I own the very cosmos," exclaimed Bali. "Surely you can ask something more befitting of me," Vaman said. "It is true that you control the universe. I also know that you are extremely generous and capable of giving me as much land as I desire. However, I do not want to take anything from you which is not strictly necessary for my maintenance. You see, my dear king, if a learned Brahman takes charity only according to his needs, he does not become entangled in sinful activities." Bali was utterly charmed by Vaman's sweet speech and innocent request. "O Brahman, your words are as good as those of learned and elderly persons. Nonetheless, you are a boy and your intelligence is not yet fully developed. Thus, you are not sufficiently shrewd regarding your self-interest." Vaman blushed and looked down, worried he might have hurt the boy's feelings. Bali quickly added, "Try to understand. I own all the universal planets and would willingly give you one, since you have come to ask me for charity and please me with your sweet words. Do you think it is in your best interest to ask me for only 3 paces of land? Of course not. That is what I meant when I said you are not being intelligent." Bali squatted in front of Vaman. "My dear boy, one who approaches me for alms should never have to ask anything more from anyone else again. Therefore, if you wish, you may ask me as much land as will suffice to maintain you according to your needs for the rest of your life." Vaman gazed steadily at Bali. "My dear king, even the entirety of whatever may be within the 3 worlds cannot satisfy a person whose senses are uncontrolled. If I were not satisfied with 3 paces of land, which is all I need, then surely I would not be satisfied with one of the planetary systems. A greedy person always wants more." Sensing his disciple and indirectly himself were being criticized, Shukra decided it was time to intervene, but Vamana continued before he could do so. "I've heard that the past kings such as Prithu and Gaya, who ruled the entire universes, were still dissatisfied with their dominions." Shukra settled down. Feeling assured the boy's disparaging comments were not aimed at him or his disciple, Vamana continued to address Bali, who still squatted next to him. "My dear king, I have also heard that one should be satisfied with whatever he achieves by his previous destiny, for discontent can never bring happiness. A person not self-controlled will not be happy even possessing the 3 worlds." Bali listened intently. The boy's words made him reflect. He owned the 3 planetary systems, and yet he was not happy. He had always thought that once he defeated Indra and took away his universe, he would be content, but it was not the case. Why did he still feel driven to achieve more? As if in answer to Bali's thoughts, Vaman said, "One in material consciousness thinks that fulfilling desires for more and more wealth is the path to happiness. They are simply entangling themselves further in the cycle of repeated birth and death. On the other hand, when we learn to be satisfied with what comes to us of its own accord, we attain liberation from material existence." I repeat, when we learn to be satisfied with what comes to us of its own accord, we attain liberation from the material existence. Vamana glanced at the Brahmins flanking Bali. Satisfaction is crucial for Brahman. If he is content with whatever he gets by providential arrangement, he becomes increasingly enlightened with the spiritual power. On the other hand, the spiritual strength of a dissatisfied Brahman decreases as fire increasingly enlightened with spiritual power. On the other hand, the spiritual strength of a dissatisfied Brahman decreases as fire is extinguished by water. Shukra and other Brahmins looked irked by the boy's comment, but Vamana seemed not to notice. Turning back to Bali, Vamana concluded, therefore, O king, from you, the best of those who give charity, I ask only 3 paces of land. By such a gift I shall be pleased, for the way of happiness is to be fully satisfied, to receive only what is needed. Bali stood up and smiled. The boy had spoken wisely. I agree. Take whatever you wish. Kindly confirm your promise in the customary way, said Vamana innocently. Shukra stiffened. If the boy only knew. Bali stood up and smiled. The boy had spoken wisely. I agree. Take whatever you wish. Kindly confirm your promise in the customary way, said Vamana innocently. Shukra stiffened. If the boy only wanted 3 paces of land according to his measurements, why was he asking for confirmation of Bali's promise? Bali just laughed and reached for his pot. Shukra frowned. Of course, this was Vishnu. Only he could have spoken in such a way. He had to stop Bali. Right. Shukra frowned. Of course, this was Vishnu. Only he could have spoken in such a way. He had to stop Bali from falling into his trap. He caught hold of Bali's right leg and in such a way he had to stop Bali from falling into his trap. He caught hold of Bali's right hand, in which he now held his water pot. Stop. Pulling Bali to the side, he whispered, listen to me, king. This brahmachari is certainly Vishnu. He is imperishable, supreme person. He has accepted Kashyap and Aditi as his parents to fulfill the interest of the gods. You have put yourself in great danger by promising to give him land. If you follow this promise, you and Asuras will suffer greatly. Bali looked disbelievingly at the young Brahmin child, who looked back with a look of unconcerned candor. O Gurudev, sure you are mistaken. He is just an innocent young ascetic. Shukra huffed, do not be fooled by his deception. This is Vishnu. He has falsely disguised himself as a dwarf brahmachari to steal everything from you. He will rob you of all your land, wealth, beauty, power, fame, and education, and give it all to you. Shukra huffed, do not be fooled by his deception. This is Vishnu. Shukra huffed, do not be fooled by his deception. This is Vishnu. He has falsely disguised himself as dwarf brahmachari to steal everything from you. He will rob you of all your land, wealth, beauty, power, fame, education, and give it all to your sworn enemy, Indra. I have only promised him 3 steps of land, said Bali. Shukra's nostrils dilated and he seemed about to explode. If Bali went through with his promise, not only he would lose everything, but so would Shukra and his family. After all, their material prosperity depended on Bali's charity. Ha, he scoffed. You have promised to give him 3 steps of land in charity, but when you give it, he will occupy the 3 worlds. You are a fool. You do not know what a great mistake you have made. Right. Bali looked at the young boy who sat peacefully. I'll repeat the last line before I continue the next lines. After giving everything to Vishnu, you will have no means of livelihood. How then shall you live? Bali looked at the young boy who sat peacefully awaiting his response. Surely Shukra was mistaken. Bali tried again to reason with his spiritual master. I have never broken my promise. How can I do so now? Shukra went red with fury. Believe me, you will not be able to keep your promise. Bali looked baffled. I own the entire universe. How will I not be able to give him 3 steps of land? Because you fool, with his first step, he will occupy where was I? Lost the thread. Bali looked baffled. I own the entire universe. How will I not be able to give him 3 steps of land? Because you fool, with his first step, he will occupy the 3 planetary systems. With his second step, he will occupy the remainder of outer space. Bali looked at the small dwarf. How he is so small. Listen to me, Bali. He will expand his body to occupy everything in this universe. There will be no place left for him to take his 3rd step, but I have already promised, said Bali in confusion. I'm telling you, there is no way you will be able to fulfill your word. If you do not heed my warning, you will end up in hell for breaking a promise you confirmed. You should not at least try to fulfill to avoid sin. Hear me, snapped Shukra impatiently. Those who are learned in the Vedas do not recommend giving charity which endangers one's livelihood. Lacking the means to maintain yourself, you will be unable to perform any religious function like giving in charity, performing sacrifices, meditation, or any worldly duties. If you knew scripture, you would know the importance of dividing your accumulated wealth into 5 parts. 1 part should be used for performing your religious duties, another for increasing your reputation, still another for increasing your opulence. The 4th for sense gratification, and the 5th for maintaining family members. Following this advice will make you happy in this life and next. Bali remained unconvinced. Since I have already promised, how can I refuse? Surely that would be sinful. Shukra spoke in a low voice. Just tell him you are unable to go through with the promise. I control the universe. How can I tell him I cannot give him 3 steps of land? Listen to what the Vedas say, rejoined Shukra. A promise does not count if not preceded by the word Om. Just tell him you do not have the land to give. I would be lying, and that is definitely a sin. Shukra snorted. What was wrong with Bali? Could he not see his imminent destruction? Shukra took a deep breath to calm himself. My dear Bali, you must be able to maintain yourself to gain the benefit of your human form of life. You cannot practice religion, study scripture, or even attain liberation if you do not maintain your body. Therefore, if to protect your body you sometimes need to tell a little lie, so be it. Consider this example. If you uproot a tree, it will wither and die. Similarly, if you neglect the body, it will wither and die. Sometimes to protect the body, you need to tell an untruth. This is such an occasion. With a healthy body, one can become powerful, famous, and fortunate. It is said that the fruits and flowers of the body are truth, although its root is untruth. Just as a tree with its root uncovered dries up and dies, by speaking lies, one uproots a body and it dries up and dies. Therefore, one should not speak untruth unless it is to protect the body, then one must. Shukra looked sternly into Bali's eyes. You are not yet obliged to give anything. Only when you precede your promise with the word Om must you give what you have pledged. Do not foolishly promise to give everything. You will become penniless, and that is not a good position for you. That is why I instruct you not to utter the word Om. If you do not heed my advice, you will lose everything and be unable to attain either self-realization or material happiness. Shukra pulled Bali closer and whispered into his ear, the best way out is to say that you cannot afford to give him what he wants. That is always a good way to avoid giving charity. It attracts the compassion of others and can even inspire them to give charity to you. Bali's agonized features betrayed his perplexity. Previously, Shukra had always insisted he give him in charity whatever he promised. He said, "Should I always lie like this? Of course not. You always plead you have nothing. You will be condemned," he said, "but you will be no better than a dead body, even though alive. And you will deserve immediate death." He cited Vedic evidence to support his argument. Bali looked from Shukra to Vaman, who seemed wholly undisturbed and detached. It did not make sense that he could not lie to Shukra, but he could do this to young Brahmachari. Noting Bali's indecision, Shukra tried again to dissuade him. "Listen to me, Bali. According to scripture, there are occasions when lying is permissible. You can lie without incurring a sin, to quote a woman as a joke, to praise the groom in a marriage ceremony, to earn your livelihood, to protect yourself when you are in danger, to protect cows and Brahmins, or to protect someone from an enemy. On such occasion, falsity is never condemned. Believe me, king, this situation is dangerous and there is no sin in you lying." So this brings us to the end of this chapter. Vaman begs charity. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.